Hi, everybody. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this place. Today, we'll be talking about caring for our natural environment, a reciprocal caring that the Wadawurrung have been engaged in for many thousands of years. I respect their elders, past, present, and emerging. My name is Sally Groom. Among other roles, I'm the president of the Surf Coast Art Space Advisory Committee, and today I'm going to be interviewing local artist Caroline Hawkins about her new project, Natural Connections. Caroline has been working in the fields of art and design for 25 years now, having trained in England. She moved to Victoria's southern coast with her family in 1991. She began working as a fibre artist in 2010 and has recently broadened her practice to encompass large-scale ephemeral land art. Hi, Caroline.
Hello, Sally.
How are you? Caroline just wanted to acknowledge her project Collaborators. So,
yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, so yes, the project is not just my idea, actually. So I have two lovely ladies I've been working with, Linda Diggins and Sue Westerveld, and they're both founders of the Drolkar Buddhist Centre. So whilst we'll be focusing a bit on the art side of things to start with, I'll perhaps explain a bit more how their art has played in coming up with this project.
Fantastic. I just introduced the project. So Caroline and her collaborators put a focus on the issue of global warming. The project name is Natural Connections, and it's part of a global movement that seeks to acknowledge the feelings that climate change provokes in us. The project aims to help participants to sit with their feelings of fear, anxiety, hopelessness, frustration, sadness, anger, and confusion in a safe, compassionate, and healing way. So, Caroline, what was the genesis of the project and its collaboration?
Well, my goodness, Sally, we actually have to sort of go back quite a few years, really. I'm thinking, as I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking back to the days 10 or more years ago when I was involved with the Surf Coast Energy Group. And we were busy with lots of projects, sustainability projects, going protesting up in Melbourne, and of course, our big elephant out the back of Anglesea, the Anglesea coal mine. And yes, I'm so grateful to have you actually interviewing, because
oh, great.
you were really a key part of that too, as we've campaigned on the coal mine. So, there was a lot of energy around that time and a lot of passion, to get some action on climate change. And I think one of the things that I felt as we moved through that time was, your energy is so caught up in the protesting side of things, and then there's a moment when a politician will just sign off, okay, Alcoa, you can have another 50 years of coal mining. And it's so deflating, so heartbreaking. You've put your heart and soul into campaigning against it. These things happen. They're happening to so many people who are activists in the climate arena, particularly. What happens next after that? One of the things that came up in my discussions with Linda and Sue as we were developing this project is that a very natural reaction is just to bury your head in the sand. It's all too hard. You cut yourself off from listening to any news about climate change particularly. So we really wanted to look at how can you address that? How can you actually keep people engaged? We're all in this together. It just depends how much you've been following what's happening globally, what's happening politically, how much it actually perhaps affects you.
Mm.
So I've had the experience, I'm sure I have, of what's now termed climate anxiety. So our project's going to have a look at how we can, as a community.
I think we can all relate to that, especially during the fires in January when we were seeing the landscapes that we love just destroyed day after day. I certainly felt a very deep grief for the landscapes of my childhood up in New South Wales, and I'm sure many people felt the same way.
I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, and now where are we at? It's not really on the agenda even. I think those poor people are feeling a bit forgotten, aren't they?
And that's sort of one aspect of it, isn't it? That that really intense grief, which is akin to losing a loved one. And then, of course, there's that background level of anxiety and hopelessness that is a different sort of a feeling, but equally damaging and equally needing to be dealt with.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
So what was the genesis of the collaboration?
Yeah, so let's see where. So I've been thinking about how to incorporate art into climate activism for a long time, since, at least those 10 years. So perhaps, Connor, we could have the first slides. So yes, how do you create an art piece that isn't negative? So if we could go to the next one, please, Connor. Lovely. Okay. So these are actually fairly recent artworks. The middle one is a Latham snipe. It's a migratory bird that it can be seen in Anglesey, I'm told. I haven't seen one. They're quite rare. They're endangered, and they migrate to somewhere in Japan. It's one of the places, but they're a bird that's certainly going to be affected by climate change. But it's a piece, and when you view it, there's an opportunity to talk about climate change and endangered species. The other two, so the girl on the right, that was a piece I did for earlier this year, an exhibition when we had exhibitions on. So she is contemplating childbirth. I actually, as I was researching around this piece, found that there is there's a movement called birth strikers. There's young women who are going, well, we're not going to have children and bring them into a world that is so uncertain, which is, being a mother, it's devastating to hear that there are these people with these thoughts out there. So that piece was trying to reflect on that. But how do you create art that doesn't have negativity? It's a real challenge, I think.
It is.
Because negativity switches people off. And then the other piece is it's called Parched. So made at the time when we were suffering the drought. So yeah, another one where you can sort of bring the topic into discussion. Anyway,
I remember seeing that piece actually. Was that in?
I think I've seen it.
Was that at the Anglesey Art Space?
It was. I'm just trying to remember the exhibition.
Part of the
exhibition in the January, maybe when you were over in Italy, Sally.
I saw it before it went in, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
In your studio.
Quite a big, ambitious piece for me. But yeah, and a lot of weaving and a lot of thinking about the sun drying everything up.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, so just kind of continue on. I have been thinking about how to bring art into this realm. And if we go to the end of last year, I actually went to see an exhibition in Dean's Marsh, and it was the final exhibition of To Hell in a Handbasket, which had received Shire funding, the seed funding last year. So that was about plastic waste and fabulous baskets made by Kellyanne, and Katie McRae was in that. There was another artist. Anyway, at that exhibition, I bumped into Linda Diggins, who I'd met quite a few years before. And we got talking about ideas that we had. Actually, hang on, before that, we had Harriet explaining to us about
Harriet Gaffney.
Harriet Gaffney explaining about this year's seed fund was going to relate to the climate emergency that's been declared by the Shire. I mean, that in itself is pretty exciting. And then to have the opportunity to do some art around the climate emergency was really exciting. And at the time, the three of us, Harriet, Linda and I, we were just talking about how wonderful that was. And Linda said, I'd love to do a project that included mindfulness meditation to support people that have anxiety around climate, particularly. How can I do this? And then we sort of looked at each other and realised there was a project in the making. So Linda encouraged Sue to join in, so another advocate on the climate change side of things. And we've been had quite a few meetings over January and February to come up with the concept of this project, Natural Connections. And here we are, so pretty exciting.
Fantastic. And how did your ideas mesh together? What were the different aspects of your ideas?
So so for Linda, she's very focused on mindfulness meditation, and the fact that she wrote some words recently that I sent you, Sally, about it bringing us together and realising that
our shared humanity and the way that we're all in it together, and bringing us sort of compassion for each other and also for ourselves. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. And so I realised that ephemeral art that I've been practicing, I've been practicing for about 2 years. I went on a workshop to learn and also been studying some other artists. We might actually have the next slide, please, Connor. So yes, so there's been quite a few artists practicing ephemeral art and realising that there's a link between ephemeral art and mindfulness. So this artist people may be familiar with. He's been around since the 80s. So this quote of his, when I work with a leaf, a rock, a stick, it's not just the material itself, it's an opening into the processes of life within and around it. My work is a growing body of feeling and understanding towards the earth. So he said that in 1987. And in fact, I think that horn, the leaf horn, was from about that period. So way ahead of his time in a way. And there's the other quote. We often forget that we are nature. Nature is not something separate from us. So that aligns very much with Linda's thoughts and on mindfulness. So nature is not something separate from us. So when we say that we have lost our connection to nature, we've lost a connection to ourselves.
That's very interesting because Shona Wilson, also an ephemeral artist from Sydney.
Her slide next. Perhaps let's have the next slide.
Okay. remember her saying the very same thing, that when she started working in nature, she realised that she was actually trying to connect to herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, there's her quote at the bottom, Sally. So Shona, she is the lady that I was able to learn from about this type of art.
So she's a Sydney-based artist, isn't she?
Further north up the coast.
Yep.
Yes, past Newcastle. I think, yeah, not quite sure
yep.
exactly, but she did come here. She was in the Biennale with some small pieces of work. Whenever that was last on, was it 2018, something like that?
In the hall, she was in the hall with the small sculptures. I remember installing it actually.
Yeah, I was able to go to her workshop.
Yep.
And learn a bit more then. Yeah, so here's what she says. What I didn't know at the beginning and came to gradually realize what this very simple recipe was, a potent mix for me to rediscover and reconnect places and parts of myself via the world around me. So yeah, it's a very personal kind of art. You know, sometimes in the end it doesn't really matter what it looks like. I mean, her work is beautiful, but the process, isn't it?
So what aspects of ephemeral land sort of art practice are you particularly attracted to, and why would you choose to use it in this project in particular?
Yes, well, the process again, that just leads very nicely into that kind of work. So if we could maybe have the next slide, please, Connor. Okay, actually, yes, so I'll just talk a little bit more about what's led me to the ephemeral art. So, so I've been practicing fibre arts, I call it, for 10 years or more, learning basket weaving from the lovely Joy BB in Aries Inlet. And just it's opened up a whole world of, you know, what plants do you use? So on this slide, the basket to the right, it's an Indigenous basket that is in the Winchelsea Historical Society that was able to go and have a look at. Not sure how old it is. There was very little information alongside this. So, you know, the history of this baskets in this region is very sparse. So to learn about what plants you can use locally, it's a lot of trial and error going on. But I studied this particular basket on the right to see if I could identify the plants after having had some experience of using plants. And then the plant on the left, the basket on the left is my version having a go at using lamandra, which I now have in my garden to work with in basketry. But the reason I put this piece in is because just in the process of finding out about plants to use for basket weaving, you have to be outdoors and learning about where to find them. Some of them, you know, are seasonal. When's the best time to collect them, for instance? And then that leads me on to, I think I've just told you a little story the other day, Sally, about a video that I watched on some basket weavers, American basket weavers, and how important it was for them when they went to source their materials for basket weaving. They knew the place already, but they'd been going to that place to care for it. They would assess whether it was too wet or too dry for the plant, and that would also give them indication as to how much material they should collect that year. They need to leave some for the environment, some for their baskets, you know, and they'd actually sort of test the leaf, see how supple it was and suitable for basket weaving, so they could cut it at the prime time. And that depth of knowledge, Sally,
Mm.
Really what intrigues me about being out in nature using plants. So if we could have the next slide, please, Connor. Yeah, so exploring what we have around us for in plant materials. So that this little basket, which is actually European style basket weaving, not indigenous, but all these plants around it are what I've used to make this particular plant. So we've got club rush, Hardenbergia, the one right down at the bottom is a sword grass, it's called. I can't remember the Latin name, but yeah, this sort of thing you start to learn. It's one that the Indigenous weaver Auntie Bronwyn introduced me to. She actually took me all the way down to Apollo Bay and beyond to a place she knew that you could get the best source of that particular plant. It turns out it does grow in Anglesey too, but not to the quality, you know. So that particular plant dries, and you see the joining section on that basket. So that is swordgrass. I also think I identified that particular plant as what was used in the Indigenous basket from Winchelsea.
What about the bark, Caroline?
The bark, stringy bark.
How's it?
It's on the handle. That's on the handle of the basket. Just yeah. So another plant used by Indigenous. It's for making string. There's the name in itself. But actually, you can't just go and peel off a bit. You need to know which part. It's not the outer bark. The outer bark is already too crumbly. Yes, there was a lovely Indigenous man showing how to make that particular string. So they would, you know, very strong once it's made. Yes, so perhaps we could have the next slide. I can't remember what we were up to in the slides. Next slide, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So here we're coming to the sort of land art that this project is based around. Yeah.
Yes. So these are some of my own experiments after having learnt from Shona and studying other artists like Andy Goldsworthy. There's quite a few out there. The top one is experimenting in my front garden with the she oak, but it's actually underneath the she oak. But just being out there, you can hear the wind in the she oaks. Somebody told me once, Indigenous people identify the plants through the sound of the wind. I'm still at early days in a way for this type of art, but it is connecting me with nature so much. And in this time that we're going through, what a lovely opportunity, really, while we're in lockdown, to be able to just go outside and be introspective in a way and actually experiencing mindfulness as you practice some of these ephemeral art pieces.
So what is it about ephemeral art that is attractive to you? What are some of the sort of particular characteristics? I mean, it's something that doesn't last, isn't it?
No, exactly.
It's not a commodity. It's more of a fleeting.
It's fleeting, and you know these photographs. I mean, apart from the one in my garden, which did take a while, these artworks. Exactly, it's intense when it's so fleeting. So you have to be really fully concentrating on what you're doing. There's only going to be a moment when it's at its best. The puffball with the yellow leaves around it, well, it was gone very, very shortly afterwards. So that focuses, that amount of concentration focuses the mind. There's also no there's no compromising to this type of art, because you're not making something that you hope somebody might like and purchase, for instance. You're not bound by your materials that you perhaps want to make something that will last. So you're free, really, to be very much in the moment. And that,
I remember reading Robert Smithson saying something similar, that he was making art on the land, like Spiral Jetty is his most famous piece. I think he was making it because he didn't like working in galleries anymore. He found them to be mausoleums of art, and he said he was sick of the commodification of art, and he thought it just took away from the sort of spirit of art to put it in a museum and give it a price tag. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So this is, these pieces that you just make them for yourself in the end, and if you can get a good photo, then that's good. But, yeah.
And what about the ethics? Because I remember reading Andy Goldsworthy saying that he liked the element of surprise when people came across the piece in the bush,
yes.
or in the countryside in England or in Scotland where he works.
Yes, so that's a little bit of a tricky one, actually, because it's probably would be better to not leave your artwork there for somebody else to find, because you're then disrupting their, if you've gone for a walk in nature, you've gone out to experience nature. You haven't gone out to experience somebody's piece of art necessarily, although that you'd hope that they might like it. But on the other hand, I think it's perhaps better you make the piece of art, photograph it, and then destroy it afterwards. Quite hard to do as well, because you might put your heart and soul into it, and then you're going to get rid of it. But that's sort of all part of that learning how about impermanence, really. And it's a Buddhist idea too. Yeah.
And how does that idea of ephemerality, how does that advance this project to help people with dealing with climate anxiety?
Yes. Well, yes. I can really only speak from my experiences myself. When we have the project, we will have some speakers to back the claims up. So we'll have a psychologist, we'll have somebody, a sustainability speaker. So we'll be looking at it. We'll also, hopefully, we'll have Karina Eccles giving us an Indigenous perspective on the reciprocal nature of being outside and looking after the land. But yes, it's that very much that concentrated time of finding and being, you can be anywhere outside and look just around on the ground at what you've got and create something out of it. So it's very, what's the word? Not impulsive, immediate.
Yeah.
And you have to focus on it. And that's where to me, that's where the mindfulness comes from. So the science side of things, the psychology, and that hopefully will back those claims up that yes, mindfulness does support people with anxiety. But, the connection with nature also too will hopefully bring about that desire to look after nature, which is what really what we're all about.
And something that's stuck with me from our conversations on this subject are your words. I think you said that this sort of work makes you feel part of nature.
Exactly. Yes. Well, that's, Andy Goldsworthy said that too,
Mm,
that we are nature, and that, it's what you observe. There's lots of ways of observing and being out in nature, not just, ephemeral art is just one method to do it, but it is a bit more intense than just going for a bushwalk. But
mm,
that's, circus, for instance, they would know. They
mm,
observe when the best waves come,
mm.
and my husband too, Simon, in his work, sitting up the fire tower, he observes, um, just he's fire spotting, but by that very nature, he's observing the clouds and learning by being out there, observing the birds. He understands and has watched the patterns of, where what the birds do, the eagles, and yeah. So lots of different ways of, not just walking in nature, but being a part of nature and understanding it. When you practice one of these, it's about trying to understand the world through nature and through your hands by, the tactileness as well.
Mm.
Hmm.
So do you think that you see nature differently since you've been
Oh,
working
absolutely.
in fibre art with natural materials?
Oh, so much.
Mm,
It's hard to put into words because it's a feeling, Sally, isn't it?
mm,
When you're out there. Um, but just being really appreciative and in awe, really. Nature, it continues on around us all the time, whatever happens. But on the other hand, you might be more tuned in to when things are changing, when the
life
seasons aren't
cycles. Yeah.
quite how we expect them to be,
Mm,
and then that starts to hurt too, doesn't it?
mm,
Um, that reminds me of, we would one of the things that we'd come across was, the idea of using new names for
mm.
some of these things, and there is the term, solastalgia.
Missy Higgins' album. Yep.
Missy Higgins album, that's it. But yeah, no, an Australian, I can't remember his name, came up with it.
Glenn, he's a philosopher. I don't
That's
remember his
right.
name either, but he's an Australian philosopher who coined some terms.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that sense of, missing home, but while you're at home, because your home environment's changed around you.
Mm,
But change is constant, isn't it?
mm.
So,
And there is that idea too that that this sort of grief that we feel, it isn't necessarily validated by our society because it's not recognised as if you lose a loved one, that it's something valid
no,
to
it
feel.
continues
Yeah.
on. Exactly. So I think, yes, from what I've been reading, it's still early days on this, subject. It keeps coming back to you. If you are, a normal, stable person and you lose a loved one, you would hope that you would get back to your normal self within a few months. Well, with
Mm.
climate grief, that's not happening, is it? It's like, it's there with you all the time. So it's maybe just this low level anxiety that people might have without even realizing it.
Mm.
But then, what we really hope with, the project is that we will support people to realize that a lot of us are feeling like this, and that shared aspect also where we can support each other.
So what are you actually doing in this project with the participants, and how many people and
Yeah, okay, well, let's just go.
reason? Yep.
I did have one more slide, so it's just, if you have another slide, Connor, please. Thank you. Yeah, so this is just a little bit more ephemeral art, on the beach, an ideal place to go and practice ephemeral art. It's never going to be there for more than one tide, is it? Because the tide comes in and off it goes again.
Mm.
But yes, now we might move on to the next one too, please. Next slide. Okay, so let me introduce to you about the project. So yes, the meetings that I've been having with Linda and Sue and coming up with a plan, we came up with 3 stages. So the first phase that we started at the moment is being recorded by Rebecca Hosking. So this is just her initial photographs, and she's going to turn it into a video.
So Rebecca's a professional photographer who lives on the Surf Coast. Yep.
Yeah, and videographer. So, you know, one of the things we conceived of the project before we had COVID restrictions.
Yep.
Now we're trying to work around how we're going to deliver the project. We've had a few discussions as to how best to do it. One of the things is, you know, the need is now for people to, it's difficult to put it off. So the first part of the project was going to be launched as part of the Arts Trail, which would have been last weekend, I think.
Yep.
And the idea was that we were going to have the Drolkar Buddhist Centre on the Arts Trail, and I would create a piece in the garden and invite people to the next stage, which was to be a weekend workshop of art workshops in ephemeral art with some wonderful speakers, and Linda offering mindful meditation as well. So fortunately I was actually able to get another grant to support this initial stage because we couldn't have the Arts Trail. So I've received funds from Regional Arts Victoria.
Congratulations, yeah.
It's all pretty much for Rebecca to be able to create a wonderful video. So we're just in the process of doing that as well, but you know, there's a lot of constraints, so it's all slowing the whole thing down. I was hoping we may have the video for now, but it'll come.
So what are you creating here in this first stage?
Yeah, so this is in the grounds of the Drolkar Buddhist Centre. The grounds are magnificent. There's some little small pocket contemplative gardens, and then surrounded by trees. So quite an extensive area. I can't tell you in acres, I'm not sure. But
maybe just describe where that is. That's in the hinterland here, isn't it?
Yeah, so the Buddhist Centre, it's at Paraparap. So Paraparap is between Torquay and Mauriac.
Yeah.
Drove along Hendy Main Road, and then it's off Blackspawns and Nortons, that area there. Yeah, so this is within a circle of trees, and we're going to create, I'm working on creating a piece that envisages the roots of the trees. So the idea is that the trees support each other underground. Something I read.
The Secret Life of Trees.
The secret life of trees, that trees, the fungal networks underground connect the trees. So we're going to try and, I'm trying to display that on the surface of the ground so we can see it. Trees support each other, and it's a sort of like a metaphor for us being able to
supporting each other, bringing your feelings to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what's the
next step?
The next stage, yeah.
Yes, so the workshops. We have had a look at how to offer them. If we were in stage 2 restrictions, which hopefully will come before too long. We've split them up into separate days. So we have 4 fabulous speakers. We'll have Karina on the Indigenous side of things, a psychologist. We'll have somebody talking, we'll have Linda's fun, actually, Jesse Diggins. His background is with youth, so he's going to address how to speak to that age group. Well, there's teenagers, and then we also identified the other day, there's the 18 to 25-year-olds who are particularly feeling the anxiety of their future at the moment. So he'll be talking on how to speak to them. So as if you were the parent, we're not necessarily expecting that age group to come to our workshops, but maybe the parents will get some tips on how to manage that age group. And then we have a lady called Rebecca Patrick from the Climate and Health Alliance, and she's been studying this topic, Deakin anxiety. She works at Deakin in the health department.
Fantastic.
So yeah, some really exciting speakers. So how we're going to work it is that so each of the days there'll be an offering from me in ephemeral art in the gardens. So we can have two groups in existence, one listening to the speaker and one doing art with me, and then there'll be lunch provided, and then the two groups can swap over. Now, if you're not able to come to the workshops, so we're only going to have a limited number, and you choose one of them to come to. The rest of the speakers we're going to do video, so you can still participate in the entire project, and some of it will be online. That's the plan, and we're hoping for November.
Fantastic. Good luck. Yeah. With the ephemeral art workshop, what sort of length of time, and would people be making their own?
Yeah. So we'll be doing some activities like, you know, when you do life drawing, you need to, they'll sometimes say, okay, we're doing a 5-minute pose or less, you know, 20-second pose. So I'll be doing some exercises like that. We can use, there's the extensive grounds with a lot of different opportunities to do something perhaps, you know, microcosmic, like we've got in this here, we've got lichen. There's the lichen on site is amazing. So people will be doing their own artworks, and I'll be also assisting them with how to photograph them. We'll have Rebecca, the professional photographer, around as well to photograph them. And then once you've done 2 or 3 pieces, and we're talking about a couple of hours a morning or afternoon, and then one of the pieces from your session you can select for us to then put into an exhibition.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll just, before we move on to the exhibition, I'll just ask people if they do have any questions or inquiries. We'll be taking questions at the end. I'll just go on and ask Caroline another question, and if you could start questions now in the chat function, then Caroline can answer those for you at the end. So sort of my final question, I guess, was, Caroline, you and your collaborator, Rebecca Hosking, plan to hold a gallery exhibition. What's the aim of the exhibition as the final stage of the project?
Well, essentially, really to make sure that the word about climate anxiety goes beyond just the people that are able to come to workshops. So it's a documentation of what we've been doing in the workshops. And we'll also be inviting the participants to comment on their experience, whether they have felt any change, let's say, in whether they're feeling, or, you know, just the opportunity to actually express amongst other people as well about climate anxiety. So the exhibition will have slideshows, or there'll be the video that we're making currently. There'll be also slideshows from the workshops, and comments by the participants, and reference to the speakers as well, photographs from each of the participants, and we'll also hopefully have an interactive piece, so that when you visit the exhibition, there'll be some way of contributing, just to get a taste of what we're talking about.
Sounds wonderful. So
yes, and that date, of course, is next year sometime.
To be confirmed.
To be confirmed. Yes. Well, as with we're organising the workshops at the moment. So currently we've got highlighted each weekend in November. So if you're interested and you'd like to come, and there will be a small cost, but subsidised obviously, because we've had this wonderful grant from the South Coast Shire. So I have a page on my website. It's on the front page for you to register your interest. So as we get to the point where we can confirm that we can go ahead with the workshops, we can email people to say, yep, we're ready. Which one would you like to book in for? So once that does go live, because we will only be able to take a maximum of 30 people each day, instead of, we were planning to have a lovely big weekend. There we go. That's perhaps not going to be possible for a while now, is it?
Getting some very positive feedback here.
Oh, good.
Congratulations on your funding. Loving the project. And Cheryl Harvey has very helpfully reminded us the Australian philosopher who coined the phrase solastalgia and other phrases.
Oh, yes.
Glenn Albrecht, Albrecht.
Thank you. Thanks.
Which now I remember, but yeah, was not there before. And he has a website, which is his name, Glenn, Glenn. And
Glenn Albrecht.
Really very interesting.
Yes.
Really interesting work. So another participant of the Shona Wilson workshop, Nicola Perkin,
Nicola
really loved it too, and understands your feeling about it.
Oh, great. Yeah.
We don't actually have any questions. Does anybody have a question? No, nothing yet.
This stage, that's all right. Just, we were talking about that solastalgia, and then there was another study done. It was a lady in Finland. So she was suggesting, that's something that we could actually do. It's a real way of putting a name onto this feeling, this climate anxiety feeling. So in Finland, they have a term for snow anxiety, which is probably not the best translation of their Finnish word, but it is essentially anxiety about not having enough snow, or winter anxiety, winter's not long enough anymore. So words that's really specific to them. Yes. Yeah. We could do a project on that too, couldn't we?
And Linda Diggins is asking, maybe you could mention Drolkar and the presenters, but I think you already have done so.
Yes. So so the presenters are going to be at the moment. So we've got Karina Eccles, Indigenous lady, who we have to, they won't confirm anything till we're out of COVID restrictions. And Michael Anderson, who's a psychologist and has presented at the Buddhist Centre before, and Jesse Diggins on the youth side of things. So he works with youth now, and will hopefully address some of that difficult, those poor, but those youngsters were daunted by their future. And then the final one, Rebecca Patrick, who's the health specialist. Well, she will be looking at sustainability, local groups as well, and strategies. So essentially, it's strategies, lots of different strategies in how to address climate anxiety, and essentially get it talked about.
Yeah, it's a great project.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the grants. Yeah, it's really well deserved. And yeah,
Yeah.
best of luck with getting it up and running and stage 2 coming
Thanks, Sally.
soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and there
Okay.
is one question. Deirdre Carmichael has asked, can you do a workshop on the plants that you use for weaving baskets?
Oh, I'd love to. Yes. Yes. So
Caroline does a lot of workshops, so
I do
you
get
can find out about those on her website too. But yeah.
I do. I have been asked quite a bit about offering Zoom workshops, but I just can't figure out how to do it with the plants. You know, normally when I do a basket workshop, I bring the plants because they're all, you know, they need to be prepared, harvested, prepared. But yes, my knowledge isn't vast, but I've been learning. So Deirdre, thank you. I'll have a good think about that. But do, if you go on my website, you can, you can go on my mailing list for workshops, future workshops.
So where have you mainly been doing workshops before?
Yes, so I go wherever I'm asked, actually, Sally,
Yeah.
but I have got a regular spot at Bluebird, the Bluebird Foundation in Geelong. So they support art in needy places, or in schools and in aged care homes. So there's a lovely link up there with subsidising some of that art in other places. So they usually, I'll do 3 or 4 workshops there per term. Danny Salvo also over in Ocean Grove. We did just start having, we were going to have a whole series this year, hopefully next year.
Wonderful.
Yes, Anger's asking me for something at the moment, so that might come up. I might actually have to have a go at a Zoom one. We'll see. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could do a Zoom workshop actually walking and looking at plants.
Well, yes. That would be interesting.
On your phone.
Yeah.
Anyway, something to think about.
Yes.
Somebody has also asked, is this going to be recorded? And yes, it is recorded. And so if you go back onto the Surf Coast Arts Trail Facebook page, you can watch this again. Cheryl Harvey has asked, could you make up plant packs and send out to participants before a workshop?
Maybe. Yes.
Maybe.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's certainly possible, Cheryl. Thank you for the question. That obviously I've been rather sidetracked onto this current project at the moment. So yes, I'm hoping that, you know, we will get to easing of restrictions soon enough to be able to do face-to-face workshops. It is a thought, but you know, I'm so hands-on when I teach, and you know, just that showing you how to do a little twist, you know, I have to be right up here showing you, or I don't know how to do it, but maybe I'll get brave enough to do one if we have to stay like this for longer. Well,
thank you so much for your time, and also, yeah, it's just best of luck for the whole project, and it sounds like a wonderful experience for participants, and we'll all be able to share it in an exhibition, maybe at the Surf Coast Art Space. We don't know how long that's going to be shut, so yeah, really look forward to hearing more.
Yeah. Things will just happen at their own pace, and this is really only the start, and there'll be lots more opportunities to hear about the project as we move on. So do register if you want to hear about it. You know, the speakers that we plan to video, that will be available at no cost, so you can join in. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you so much, Sally.
See you in the bush soon. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.